Oh, well, are you enjoying the insect choruses going on at night right now? I just going to sleep to the sound of that coming in the windows, all the crickets and the katydids. Jill and I went to a class down at the Forest School at the Arc of Appalachia, Southern Ohio last weekend to learn all about the singing insects. They called it Nature's Choir, and we thoroughly enjoyed that. So, no surprise, I have some entomologist jokes for you this morning. And here's a couple of them. We'll start with an easy riddle. Why do bees hum?
Why?
They don't know the words. Exactly right. Okay. These are jokes from the 57th annual meeting of the Entomological Society of America. So these are coming from the experts. Did you hear about the male praying mantis who asked a female out for a dinner date? He lost his head. Why wouldn't they let the butterfly into the dance? It was a mothball. Okay, why is it a bad idea to take dogs to a flea circus? They steal the show. Okay, here's kind of a good one. What is the dung beetle? You ever heard the dung beetle? What is the dung beetle's best pickup line? Pardon me, is this stool taken? Okay, I like that one. Last one is actually a short little poem, kind of charming. It's the shortest poem ever by Ogden Nash. It's called Fleas. And it goes, Adam had 'em. That was my favorite, actually. They go way back. In other words, always been fleas. Well, we learned all about these wonderful singing insects right now. Crickets, katydids, cicadas. Cicadas, of course, are the ones singing during the day. There's wonderful waves of song that rise and fall. At night, it's the crickets and the katydids, and we were interested to learn some of the basics. We weren't able to distinguish between all the different songs out there. There's a wealth of varieties of katydids and field crickets and tree crickets out there. But we did, here's some basics. Crickets are the ones that make a note that you can actually kind of sing. There's a pure tone to the cricket songs. It could be anything, but you can sing it. The katydids are the percussionists. They're the non-pitched percussionists, and all kinds of rattles and ticks and zits and things like that out there. Those are all the katydids, and they're usually up in the treetops. So the concert hall out there that we're enjoying every night right now, one of our presenters, Lisa Rainsong, she said the concert hall is vertical out there. It goes from the ground all the way up to the treetops that we're listening to at night. And it sounds like a wall of sound to us, but skilled people like our presenters down there, one of our presenters was a man named Will Hirschberger. He wrote a book called Songs of Insects, and he has all the recordings of all these individual varieties. We can at least learn some of the basics, like they make that sound, Nature's Choir at night, not with mouths and vocal parts, but by stridulation, they call it. With katydids and crickets, there's the top of their wings, there's like a file and scraper. They rub together like that and rapidly, and that's how they make those sounds that we hear, this variety of wonderful sounds, stridulation. And the whole sound of it they call a biophony. Isn't that a great new word? Would you like to say that with me? Biophony. Biophony. It's great. It's like bio is like biological, and phony is like the same word on the end of symphony, telephony. It's the sound of. So it's the sound of biological life on Earth, biophony. It all comes together in this wonderful biophony. So I thought we'd just listen to a little bit of it together and see if you can hear some pure tones of the crickets or some rhythms of a katydid or two as you listen for just like half a minute or a minute. Crank it up, Larry. something very restful about it, isn't there? I could just listen to that for an hour, but we won't do that right now. That's good, Larry. Thank you. But did you hear a couple of crickets? There were a couple of notes you could hear. There were a couple of rhythms. Those are the katydids. Wonderful, wonderful biophony. And I think as you listen more, you can hear more and more what's going on there. One of the things I was struck by in our listening experiences down to the field trips and the recordings we were listening to is that it's surprising to hear harmony. I heard one cricket singing, it's like a 4-spotted tree cricket or something, and then I heard another one a third above it. Those of you who sing harmony, you know how basic that is to harmony. It's like thirds and fifths. It's like, and I was hearing it in nature. It's kind of amazing. It's kind of a natural harmony out there. One of our presenters was actually also a professor in music theory, and she does that quite often. She'll like record one species of cricket as a kind of a baseline and then find out where the other crickets are in relation to that. There's a natural harmony going on out there. They all have their own place on the sound spectrum, and entomologists can track that. Some of them are really high frequencies, like 9,000 kilohertz. Some of them are lower frequencies. Apparently, as we human beings age, we can't hear some of those higher ones. We start losing some of that upper frequency ability. And they did play some of these meadow katydids we couldn't hear. You know, are you playing it yet? Young ears can hear usually the full spectrum, but in any biophony, in any habitat, every insect has its own place on the spectrum, so there's no overlap or what they call masking, so they can always be heard. Their song, they have a place on the sound spectrum where they can be heard and where they can share their song without interruption. So there's harmony out there. There's a natural place on the spectrum for everybody, for all the insects out there in the choir. I was also interested to learn that a lot of the singing insects synchronize. Some of the katydids, and by the way, all the singers are male. It's all males. The males are the singers. The females evaluate the songs and follow. He sounds good. And off they go. So there's some of the male katydids up in the treetops will synchronize. They'll get in rhythm together. Some kind of a natural tendency to harmonize, to synchronize, to be in flow together. Reminded me of, we went to a firefly workshop last summer. Fireflies, of course, are a little earlier in the summer, like June, I think. But there are synchronous fireflies. I don't know whether any of you have ever seen them. Apparently the Great Smoky Mountains are a great place to go for this species of fireflies that synchronize. They get their lights flashing at the same time. And there's thousands of people go to the Smoky Mountains every summer to catch that experience. Places around like Gatlinburg, down that way. I've never experienced them, but there seems to be this tendency in nature to flow together, to synchronize, to be in harmony. So of course, I draw a lot of spiritual lessons from nature, I'm sure you've noticed before, but it makes me think about, well, aren't we part of that same harmony? Is harmony just as natural for us? Is this the way we can live and are meant to live? Is this the way our human communities are meant to thrive? I think so. I think harmony is just as basic and natural to us, but with our free will and our conscious minds, we're not always letting ourselves be in the flow of that, or we just get out of the flow of it somehow, or may not even be aware it's there for us to be a part of. You know, with the insects, it's by instinct. They find their place in the choir on that spectrum. I think with human beings, it's more about, we call it intuition. We follow guidance in us in the same way, but it's coming from that deep intelligence in us. We can also live with that kind of harmony, finding our own place in nature's choir, our own place on the spectrum where we can share our gifts in the world, where they can be heard and appreciated. And we need everybody's, wouldn't you agree? We need everybody's gifts, we need everybody's songs. We can't do without them. And it's really a part of our whole life process. I think we're learning about how how to share our song in the choir. We're always joining the choir and finding new ways to be who we are and share what we have to share with the world, and stepping out there with it, joining the choir. Joe walks our dogs every morning, and lately has begun to see the school bus again. The kids are always great about it. They relate with dogs like friends. You know, there's no distinction between a dog and another kid. You know, they're all, so they wave at the dogs every morning, and Joe happened to see our neighbors putting their little boy Isaac on the bus for his first day of kindergarten going on, and their parents were taking pictures, and it was really sweet to hear about it. I exchanged some texts with his mom about it, and she said, yeah, they were really nervous, and they were more nervous than he was, but off he went, joining the choir. You know, he's going in that first day of school. It's a half-day program in Dublin, which is kind of nice. They can ease into it a little bit. And he's a week or two in now, and he's doing fine. He's found his place in his kindergarten class. He has begun to be appreciated for Isaac, with who Isaac is and the gifts he has to share in that classroom. I think we're doing that all the time, and when it's going well and we're finding our way and everybody's gifts are being used, it's a wonderful thing to witness, and amazing things can get done. Our experience down at the Ark of Appalachia, where they have this thing they call Forest School, and they offer like long weekend classes, like 3-day classes on everything from trees to wildflowers to bird song to insect song, nature song, which was the one we just did. They're a wonderful collaboration of people with remarkable gifts being pooled, and we need everybody's. When you go to one of these classes, it's just such an excellent example of that. There's these wonderful, it starts with the director, Nancy Stranahan, who she finds these expert naturalists from all over the place who are not only really knowledgeable, but really good communicators and really excited about what they're communicating about bugs or trees or birds or rivers, whatever it is. She kind of brings them in, invites them in, and they share with great excitement their talents, their songs, about what they know, what they have to share. And then there are volunteers who are there maintaining the trails so that we can go on our field trips. Those are people that are passionate about maintaining nature preserves and biodiversity out in the field so that we have insects and birds to enjoy. And then there were people who came to those classes from all walks of life, and they shared their expertise in our classes, their stories, their experiences, all this pooling. There were wonderful people who did wonderful local homemade food in the kitchen for us, 3 meals a day. Wonderful cooking, and they came out and they were thoroughly appreciated. They were introduced to all of us and given a round of applause for their food. And there were volunteers from our group who volunteered at every meal to do cleanup, to make sure things got into the kitchen and washed up, and the pots. We were on pot detail after dinner every night. To put out water to whatever it was. And I remember after one of the dinners one night, the director came out. She was so excited to show us the trash bin after our dinner. There was hardly anything in the bottom of it. And she said, that's all we have left. That's all the trash we have after feeding 30 people. So excited. We need conservationists. We need nature preservers. We need all these gifts. People to get excited about eliminating trash, about how much composting and recycling we can do. Woo, look how much we did. We need that. We need all these gifts, and it's wonderful when we're all in the flow of that, sharing the gifts we have, the kind of community we can create, the kind of work we can get done. In 1 Corinthians it says there are a diversity of gifts with the same Spirit. This is how God flows through us all with these unique creative gifts we have to share, and they're all needed. Every one of those we need on the sound spectrum to create a beautiful human biophony on planet Earth. What do we do when it's not working very well? When we're out of the flow of that, when we are not feeling in harmony, when we're not feeling that intuitive understanding of our place and what's ours to do or share? Because I think we all get in places like that, wouldn't you agree? Times when we're not feeling it. What's ours to do? We're feeling out of the flow of it. Or there are others around us who are kind of troublesomely not in the flow of it. who are causing problems or disruptions. What do we do then? Sometimes when we're out of the flow, there's, instead of biophony, there's cacophony. Cacophony, same sound on the end of that word, but sound of discord, sound of no harmony. And we have a lot of that sometimes in our lives, in our world. What do we do then? Jesus said, we pray and we love. He said, love your enemies, the troublemakers in our midst, love them. Pray for those who persecute you. Pray for those who are causing you trouble. Pray for them. I always think it's really interesting. I've got a couple books by Neil Douglas Klotz, who does interpretations of scripture really based on what Jesus was probably actually saying in Aramaic, which was his language, which was only a spoken language. But that's the words he was speaking were Aramaic. And Aramaic as a language is much more multidimensional in its meanings. So what we read in the Bible, that's what kind of got boiled down over thousands of years. But the original Aramaic was probably much wider ranging than that, with different levels of meaning for different words. So according to Neil Douglas Klotz, this is from his book, Prayers of the Cosmos, he says when Jesus said, pray for, like pray for your enemies, pray for the troublemakers, the meaning of pray for was more like open space for them. Open space. Hold space for them. Don't shut down or shut out, but open space for. That's to pray for. And love your enemies. What did that mean in these scriptures about love your enemies? In Aramaic, Jesus was saying something more like this, and I find this fascinating. Unite with your enemies from the inside. Fill the inner void that makes them fall out of rhythm. Bring yourself into rhythm within. Do this work in secret so they don't know. This kind of love creates. It doesn't emote. It's not an emotional thing. It's a creative thing that we work on the inside. We open space. We hold space for them. We try to fill that inner void. They've fallen out of rhythm in some way. And we try to hold space, a loving space, and feel a connection, filling our own inner void. And that's going to influence them too. It's work we do in secret. Wow, that's a much deeper meaning for this idea of loving your enemies. And nowhere in there is anything about allowing yourself to be mistreated or stepped on or persecuted. It's a creative way to respond to troublesomeness. Troublesome people, people out of the flow, and maybe ourselves when we're out of the flow too. Hang in there. Pray for yourself. Hold some space. Be open. Don't shut down or condemn or get angry at yourself or others. Pray. Open space. Wait. I think that's the way Jesus taught again and again, and it's a slower way to deal with trouble and troublesome people, but it's the only way that really works. Shutting down, excluding, condemning, battling has never really worked. This slower way is the one that really brings the cacophonous, the adversarial into the symphony, into the symphony that we're all a part of, into the choir we're all a part of. Listening to Nature's Choir out there made me think of my experiences in choir, because we have experiences in vocal choirs throughout our lives. I know many of you, like me, probably went back to school choirs. How many of you were in a high school choir? Oh, wonderful. Well, most of us. It's a wonderful experience to learn to be part of a choir and to find your voice and to share it in that way. I remember my high school choir still vividly to this day. Our wonderful, intrepid director, Herb Krishbaum. He's gone on several years ago now, but he was had a wonderful gift for bringing out the voice in young people and getting them to sing together and putting them in different ensembles. I was in choir, I also had a little girls' ensemble with our little hand-sewn dresses. We'd sing in nursing homes and things like that. I thought we were so good. There were boys' ensembles. There were wonderful experiences. I was briefly in a college choir at OU. Lots of choirs. We were in the Harmony Project choir for a couple of years. Big city choir here in town under the direction of David Brown. No auditions. Everybody got in. formed, and there were all kinds of people in that choir, homeless people, imprisoned people, people just out of prison. The Franklin County treasurer was in there. There were rich people, there were broke people, there were all kinds of people in that choir. And it seems to me, this is it's really very like nature's choir out there. What makes the best choir? Those of you who've had experience with it. From my experience, I think what makes the best choir is the choir where everybody gets in. Where everybody gets in. There isn't any exclusions. Everybody is allowed to be a part of the choir. Choir is for everybody, with our imperfect voices, pooling them and listening to each other and trusting the director and getting better and better and singing together better and better as we listen and as we naturally harmonize with one another. It's amazing how much a choir can absorb. And Linda has been a choir director a number of times. You can handle a fair amount of discord in a choir. You can handle people who really kind of monotone. It's all right. You can work them in. The Harmony Project can do it with 500 people and none of them with any musical background. I tell you, it can be done. There's a place for all of us on the spectrum, just like the crickets and the katydids. And we need everybody's voices in there. And the more there is that spirit of inclusiveness, and we want everybody to join the choir, the more that's there, the more you have that spirit of a good choir, which is a spirit that will uplift everyone who hears it, I think. One of my favorite choirs I've been a part of, I think Joe might agree, was Joyce Daniel Kane's wonderful gospel choir that we were a part of. You were nodding, you were there at Unity on Bays Road. Joyce did a gospel choir for us on third Sundays, once a month for, I don't know how long it was, a few years, and everybody could get in, anybody that wanted to, all kinds of people, all walks of life, and even those who could hardly sing. We could all be a part of that choir, and there were opportunities for solos, people who'd never done a solo in their life. There'd be little solos they could do, and there'd be lots of encouragement from the director, as well as from other members. They'd be go, "You sing it, girl. You go on. You sing it. Get it up. Yeah, good." It was amazing how that empowered people, or lifted people up, and how it empowered and lifted up those who heard us. I particularly liked the way Joyce would, for years thereafter, if she would do a song somewhere and she'd see former choir members out in the audience and we were going to do a familiar closer number or something, she'd say, "All right, y'all, come on up here. Don't make me call your names. Don't make me call your names." And other people would come, be a part of that choir, join in the biophony, share your gifts. That's what makes the best choir. And it seems to me that's what makes the best human communities. For the best kind of human flourishing we can do in that kind of community. Because really, in a way, our names are being called. God in us is nudging us to share our gifts in the world. Show up, be who you are. What have you got to share? What have you got to teach? What have you got to be that you can share in your communities that's going to be a blessing, not only to you, but to everybody around you? We need it. Whatever you've got to share, we need it. We need everybody's gifts. We need everybody's songs. And there's a place and a room for every one of us. And we can share them in harmony. It's amazing if we follow the flow of that guidance in us, it'll all flow together in a wonderful, harmonious community, a wonderful biophony that we all can be a part of. Guided by divine wisdom, I add my song to the chorus of life. I am blessed. Let's take that part by part. If you want to share it, say it after me. Guided by divine wisdom.
Guided by divine wisdom.
I add my song to the chorus of life.
I add my song to the chorus of life.
I am blessed.
I am blessed.
We are blessed.
We are blessed.
This is the truth. Let's take that into prayer for a moment and affirm that truth within. Each one of our songs is so needed. Each one of us is gifted with our own unique song, our unique gifts, talents, and abilities. So we affirm our readiness to share them generously with our families, our friends, our communities, our world, our earth. How blessed we are to live in a universe of such deep harmony that we can all be a part of. We add our songs to the chorus of life on planet Earth, and we are blessed. And so it is. Amen.